So RFK was just tapped to be the Director of Health and Human Services. And while he does need to be confirmed by the Senate, many are up in arms over this. So why? Taking their social media accounts and going crazy. You're seeing crazy segments on CNN and MSNBC. What kind of crazy am I talking about? Well, here's a tweet that I just randomly caught amongst the hundreds of others just like it. Nick Mark, MD. Hard to overstate how bad this is. RFK Jr. will withdraw FDA approval of vaccines. No, he never said that. Maybe mifepristone too. He never said that. States' rights won't matter, and he'll dismantle the ability to respond to future pandemics. Because we responded to the last one so well? He'll ban fertilizers and pesticides. This is a bad thing? Expect food to be less safe and more expensive. Food has never been more expensive than it is now, or less safe. So let's start with where we are. We are at rock bottom. Americans are sicker than ever in human history. We're sicker than ever. Than any human that has ever lived, Americans are sicker than any human over the past 300,000 years. We are sicker. 74% of us are overweight or obese. 50 years ago, it was 10%. 10 years before that, it was 5%. Okay? Let's see. Infertility is increasing at 1% a year, and it's higher than ever in men and women. Ever. Human history, higher than ever. A 30-year-old man today has the testosterone level that a 50-year-old man had 30 years ago. 1 in 34 kids is now diagnosed with autism. When I was a child, I think it was around 1 in 100,000. Early onset cancer diagnoses are up 79% in people 18 to 49 over the past 3 decades. Do I need to continue with this? We are sicker than ever. And these diseases are the #1 cause of bankruptcy in our country today. Is there a bottom from where we are now? Is there a basement from here? I don't think so. Is there a way to go down? If so, somebody tell me how. How is that possible? We are more depressed, we are more ill than ever. So the system is currently failing us. Nothing is working in the system of health and human services here in America. Let's look at some of the things that this guy is talking about. Let's start with fertilizers and pesticides. That will take us to big farming. I'm not talking about like some sweet family farm. I'm talking about Monsanto, Cargill, ConAgra, these major, monster, big ag companies. And they have effectively manipulated some of our agricultural legislation, like the Farm Bill, to siphon off billions in tax dollars to grow their patented, genetically engineered crops, like corn, soy, and wheat, for example, okay? And they grow these crops in dead, deserted soil. So what happens is that they spray these crops with all of their chemicals, right? Their herbicides, fungicides, pesticides, which, by the way, come from chemical warfare. That's where these chemicals come from. Look it up. That's where they came from, these chemicals. And they then turned in, what do we do with, now that we've developed these things as chemical warfare, and now that Vietnam is over, what do we do? Pesticides, herbicides, fungicides. Yep. But nothing grows in this dead soil. So now what do? Well, the plants will tolerate the chemicals, but they can't grow in the dead soil, so now you've got chemical fertilizer on top of it. Now, plants get their nutrients from the soil. There is no nutrients in the soil. None. The soil is dead. So not only are these crops genetically engineered mutants, they have no nutrition in them, and they're heavily sprayed with many different chemicals before they even get to the big food factories. Big food then picks this stuff up and tinkers with it some more, and they add coloring and flavoring and preservatives and anti-caking agents, 10,000 different chemicals that make their way into our food through a loophole. And guess where? The FDA, which would be an organization under the umbrella of the HHS, because the HHS is responsible for 11 different agencies, with the FDA being one, the NIH being another, the CDC, the USDA. See how this is going to work? United States Department of Agriculture, the Food and Drug Association, the FDA administration, whatever the hell they're called. This has been a long day for me. The FDA. Follow me here. He's overseeing all of that. So now they take these crappy chemicals, they tinker with them some more, and they put them everywhere. There's no nutrients and nothing but crap and poison in them. They are ultra-processed frankenfoods. This is the stuff that is linked to all those scary health statistics I'm telling you about. And then these chemicals, they get in our water. They get in our air. They cause dead zones in the ocean. And by the way, the people that used to talk about this all of the time, MAHA is not new. It's just getting a foothold. That's all. This has been going on for decades. We've been fighting this fight. Guys, do we not remember Mark Bittman, Michael Pollan, Marion Nestle, Maria Rodale, Dr. Mark Hyman? This is not new news, except these people were heroes. Do you remember when Ted Danson was testifying to Congress about the health of the oceans? Well, where do you think these dead zones are coming from? It's the runoff of these chemical fertilizers that are making the plankton overgrow and asphyxiating all the fish, and then you got nothing but jellyfish for hundreds of miles. Like, this is serious. This is, oh no, he's gonna ban herbicides and fungicides and pesticides. Like, oh my God, I hope so. Good God, I hope so. And the reality is that as much agency as I can tell you to take, the crap is in our water. It's in our air. Go out to eat and you get a spinach salad, and the spinach doesn't even have nutrients, and it's covered in a ton of chemicals. Like, you can't even stop that. You've got to buy like organic, local, and it's a luxury that most people don't have. And then after that, Big Pharma gets involved and they tell you, oh my God, you're so sick. You need all of these diseases. But we're sick by design. This is all by design. The raw economic incentives are insane. Do you realize that disease has a compound annual growth rate of like almost 10%? Think about all of these people and legacy media channels that are going crazy right now. CNN, 70+% of their marketing budget comes from Big Pharma. Ozempic is not to actually sell you Ozempic, believe it or not. It's to buy the narrative so they don't ever say anything bad about the drugs. They're buying the narrative. They're even buying experts off on social media. Look up this piece in the Washington Post about how they were buying off registered dietitians to tell you that you could be healthy in any size and to derail the shame about junk food or to push artificial sweeteners on you. Like, just use your common sense here. And then they buy off our politicians because it costs money to run for office. Kamala Harris's campaign, it's now well known, she raised $1 billion and she spent all of it. Where'd that money come from? You think it's your neighbor donating $100? No, it's coming from big lobbyists. It's coming from big food, big pharma, big ag, big insurance, the military-industrial complex, which is a whole separate conversation that I am not an expert in. But when they make that donation, they are buying that currency. They are buying the ability to put their people at the FDA. Look up the revolving door of the FDA and Big Food, the FDA and Big Pharma. The same guys work at Big Pharma, go over, run the FDA, approve the drugs, go back to Big Pharma. Same thing with Big Food, FDA, back and forth, like a loop. By design, these are not good people. These institutions are so corrupt. They are being funded by the companies that they are supposed to oversee. There is so much for you to know here, but you just have to do some homework and not give in to the fear porn and the fear mongering, because it is all about money. It is just all about money. Even when we look at vaccines, for example, Kennedy's going to take away the vaccines. He is not going to take away the vaccines, but he may give that new mom the opportunity to ask whether her newborn needs a vaccine for a sexually transmitted disease like hepatitis B. It's madness. It's on the schedule because it's profitable. But a newborn does not need a hepatitis B vaccine. They can test the mother for hepatitis B and take it from there. If she doesn't have hepatitis B, the newborn is not going to inject drugs or have risky sex for quite some time. So think about that for a second. It's going to give a new mom the opportunity to say, does my kid need 72 shots in this time frame? Or hopefully it will. It'll give you the opportunity to take some agency and have these conversations with your doctor and make some decisions for yourself. I mean, my God, look at the NIH. Look at what they did during COVID. And I'll give you another example. They knew that there were vaccine injuries. The NIH was doing a study on vaccine-injured people that got injured during the vaccine trials while rolling out the vaccines. And not only that, the NIH holds the patent for these vaccines. That's not ethical. And you want to know why they were shadow banning people who were talking about ivermectin, which is a drug that's been around for 30 years, which is a drug that won a Nobel Prize, which is a drug that has nominal side effects, which is a drug that arguably was an effective therapeutic, or is an effective therapeutic in treating COVID, because if you have a therapeutic, you cannot get a drug or a vaccine approved for emergency use through the PrEP Act. There's so much going on here. So much going on here. And I'm just going to encourage you and ask you to just do a little homework before thinking, oh, the lunatics are running the asylum. The monsters are running the asylum right now. The unchecked corporate greed of pure monsters are the ones that are running the asylum. It is not by chance that Americans are sicker than ever. It is by design. And there's so much out there on this, guys. I really encourage you to do some homework because this is going to be a scary time. There's going to be a ton of fear-mongering and chaos. And I'm simply asking you to defer to your common sense. Watch some podcasts with people like Brigham Mueller who talk about the craziness with big insurance, or Callie Means, who's a former lobbyist for Big Food or Big Pharma, or look at read some of the emails that came out in the congressional hearings from the NIH. They knew that COVID came from a lab. They knew it came from one of the studies they funded the grant they gave the EcoHealth Alliance. It's in the emails. And then they discussed how to get around FOIA requests to hide it. So when someone goes in and says, I'm going to clean house, for me personally, I say, thank God.